Hello everyone, welcome back to Story Behind the Story. I'm your host, Courtney Rowe, and today I am joined for the second week in a row by the lovely Andrew Wegley, who just did a story about the officiating shortage here in Missouri. I just want to start off by saying that I thoroughly enjoyed every aspect of your story. It was unique, it was creative, It was heartfelt. So I just want to know what inspired you to write this story in the first place? Like, what was your motivation?
Well, part of it was that I heard a lot about the officiating shortage, from people have been talking about this for 5 years, but also I was an umpire this summer and I umpired baseball, so I kind of lived through it, not in the same aspect that what I wrote about, but being an umpire and being behind the plate, you hear a lot of stuff from parents that are overly rude to you when you're just trying to do your job. So that was part of it too. I was just what these people go through every, Friday night for a football game or Monday for a JV game or whatever it is, it sucks. So, that part of it made me want to do it more maybe than any other reporter wanted to do it. But a lot of it was just kind of telling the story of these people that allow high school sports to happen because they give up their Friday nights and their weekends every single week throughout the fall and then throughout the spring for other sports. So that was an interesting part of it for me too.
I have to say it was very touching, for lack of a better word, to be able to see this whole new perspective and read about it. I just want to know what the actual experience of talking to these people was like. What was it like for you?
So it actually took me close to a month to do this story because I started with just going to a high school football game and kind of following a ref around, and I took some pictures of them and the whole crew, and I just kind of wanted to see what it was like for them. I didn't really even talk to them that much. I just kind of heard what they heard, saw what they saw, and then I went and talked to Maryville High School Activities Director Matt Bew and talked to him about it, and he was very helpful. And then I talked to Kelly Martin, who is an official in the area as well as an officiating signer, and then I talked to Kenny Seifert, who works at Mish's front office kind of in Columbia, and then I talked to a couple high school refs at a football game that Maryville High School played in. So much went into this story because it was over weeks and weeks getting these interviews, setting them up, and meeting these people, and then just kind of putting it all together was a whole challenge in itself. But I'd say maybe the most interesting part of it was talking to the officials. I actually went to the high school football game. It was down in Harrisonville, Missouri. So I went there, talked to them, and they're like, "Yeah, we'll talk to you after the game." And I went into their locker room after the game, and I was taking it all in. And then they found out that I worked for a newspaper. I guess they somehow didn't understand that when I told them that I was wanting to write a story about them. And they're like, "Oh, we don't know if we can talk to you." So then they had to just give me their phone number, and I had to clear it with Mish's. Kenny Seifert was the front office, and he said it was all okay, but it was just another roadblock in the story. But I eventually kind of was able to get it done.
So I know I definitely learned a lot of what goes on behind the scenes and what they have to deal with on a day-to-day basis or a game-to-game basis. But for you, what was the most surprising thing or the most inspiring thing that you learned?
Well, so a big part of the story is that the officiating shortage is kind of because there's so many older guys, mostly guys, but guys and girls, or men and women being officials in Missouri, but they're all kind of aging. I think 60% of them are over the age of 50, and one guy I talked to is 71 years old and still officiating high school football. But what they have to do throughout the year to be in shape for the fall season when it rolls around was kind of insane to me. There was a guy that said in June he does a yoga class in the morning, and then every day at lunch he goes and runs sprints at a high school field. And then, the 71-year-old guy said he works out all year round. I just I can't imagine being 71 years old and working out every day. I don't even do it at 20 years old.
Yeah.
So I don't know. But just the dedication they have. He says he's always studying. He's always looking at the rules, always working out, just to be ready, just to make the best calls possible for these high school athletes.
So I know you talk a lot about it in your actual story, but I want the viewers to kind of have something to go off of. So tell me a little bit more about what they do actually have to go through behind the scenes.
Well, a lot of it is kind of just what Matt Bew told me, the Maryville High School Athletic Activities Director, is it's a small minority of fans, but they're a vocal minority. So on the field, I was just kind of following around, and you had coaches yelling throw the flag, and I asked them for examples. I mean, they hear stuff how much do they pay you guys? Are you guys blind? Do you need an eye doctor and stuff like that? But beyond that, I think a lot of it is coaches just in their ear all game, clapping in their ear, saying, arguing the littlest of calls that aren't going to affect the outcome of the game because they just are so competitive, and they're kind of losing touch with what high school sports should be, which is a big point that the officials made to me, is that they know that there's probably holding on every single play in high school football. If you call it all, you're taking away experience from these kids, and that was such a really big part of it to me.
So it was definitely a very unique experience that not a lot of people get to have But did it alter the way you view high school sports or just MSHSAA in general?
Well, I think a lot of it, at least in my eyes, like when I played high school sports, I think you take officials for granted and you just assume that they're always going to be there. But I mean, the statistics show that a lot of these guys are inching closer and closer to retirement, and there's nobody that wants to take their place, because if you go through it or if you've been to a high school sporting event, you know that it doesn't look that fun. But I mean, we're looking at a future right now that if course doesn't, if it doesn't reverse course, then you're looking at a future where high school football games can't all be played on Friday nights, or they could be on Saturdays or Thursdays. Yeah. And MSHSAA is doing what they can to try to reverse that and try to recruit younger kids and try to recruit veterans and try to recruit all these people to come and become officials. But like in some ways it could be too little too late, and we don't really know. But all of a sudden it's like these people that have been taken granted for 10, 20, 30 years are about to retire, and suddenly they're realizing how valuable they are.
It definitely goes down to respect and just treating people the way you want to be treated,
right,
the basic rule, and it could have a major effect on the way high school sports are played, and I think it's just something that people need to be aware of, which is why I really, really appreciate you covering this story. Prior to preparing for the show, I know you mentioned to me that it was a novel and that I didn't have to read through all of it, but I seriously could not stop myself from reading it top to bottom. It was such an inspiring story, and I really hope that you all go check it out, because really I can tell how dedicated you were to this story, and it really shows. Thank you so much for joining me and talking with me about it. Thank you guys for watching. This has been Story Behind the Story.